Jim Peterson here with the Egg Harbor Historical Society on a monumental day. It's Sunday, the 26th of June, and we are at the reunion party for the original Egg Harbor School. The school is long since gone, but today is a reunion day. More than 150 former students and teachers are coming back to celebrate the school in Egg Harbor and their recollections of what it was like going to a one-room school, growing up here, and where they have gone to since graduating that. The school was taken down in 1972, and in its place was constructed the Egg Harbor Town and Village Fire Department building.
I'd like to introduce Jim Peterson, the president of the Egg Harbor Historical Society, which is sponsoring this event. Jim?
Thank you, Giz, and welcome to former students and teachers from this Egg Harbor School. What a wonderful reunion day. The sun is shining brightly. I'd like to take a moment and just have us all remove our hats and just a moment of prayer, please. Holy Father, we thank Thee for the privilege of being together today as a big family. As generations grew further apart, let them be brought together with a memory of bygone days, a memory of classmates who were once with us and those that are living in our memories. Strengthen the bond of relationships renewed today, and as always, keep our ties together. In Your name we pray. Amen. I'd like to do some introductions. First of all, I would like to thank the two people of the Egg Harbor Historical Society that were most instrumental in putting this event today, and that is Judy Haen Dexheimer, and Steve Jorns. Today is the culmination of about 16, maybe 18 months of work to find all the students, set the date, put it all together, and they did a wonderful job. Thank you. I would also like to thank Giz Herbst, who's been making periodic announcements, doing the artwork and assisting with the booklet that was distributed. And I'd also like to acknowledge other members of the Egg Harbor Historical Society Board of Directors. They include Shar Miller, our treasurer, Pam Crowell, secretary, Miles Danhausen, Sr., our vice president. So thank you to one and all. I'd like to acknowledge some of the alumni parents and alumni children here today. Eva Peterman Jorns and Pam Verumen McNamara. There would be Roland Jorns and Steve Jorns, Ruby Volkmann Demeen, Mary Demeen, Penny Demeen, John Demeen. Did I miss any of the Demeen family? Okay, and then some special recognitions. Penny Demeen, Tylara, I believe it's pronounced, came here from California, about 1,700 miles away, so we welcome her. Let's thank Mary Haen Lautenbach, who came in from Surprise, Arizona. What a surprise to have her here. Paul Lautenbach came from Sun City, Florida. And Barb Herbst Kramer came from Albuquerque, New Mexico. And Joanne Perry Cox came from Tallahassee, Florida. So the roots from the Egg Harbor School went far and long. Also like to say hi to John and Marianne Enigal, who are in attendance. The Historical Society, a little more than 2 years ago, purchased the old Door County bookmobile from the Enigal family, and we are in the process of restoring the bookmobile to get it back on the road. So thank you. At this time, I would like to ask Eunice Rutherford, who was a teacher here back in 69 through 71, to just come forward and share a few moments of her time with us all with regard to teaching at the Egg Harbor School and her memories. So Eunice, come on up, please. There you go.
There we go. Well, I was asked when I arrived if I would say a few words, so I jotted down a couple of things. When I started teaching here, Tom Birmingham was the administrator at the Gibraltar schools, and we still had all the little outlying schools, and he asked me if I would be willing to come back full-time and teach. I had taught and opened the first kindergarten we had out at Appleport School, and then I had worked with the migrant worker program, and I started the remedial reading program in the junior high, and then I took off for a little bit. And when Tom asked me if I'd like to go back full-time, I said sure. And I was supposed to go to Bailey's Harbor. But Terry Wallace was living in Bailey's Harbor, almost next door to the school, and she was coming over here to Egg Harbor to teach, and I was living in Fish Creek, so I was going to travel across the county to teach at Egg Harbor. And so just about the time school started, Tom called and he said, would you mind going to Egg Harbor? He said, it seems kind of silly to have both you girls crossing across the county every morning. He said, so if I wouldn't mind. And I said, sure, that's fine with me. And so that's how I started here at Egg Harbor. It was a wonderful little school. It had 3 rooms. I was down in the basement for the first year. And that was an experience. As you know, the school was beginning to kind of fall apart, and it needed some work. And I remember the kids had done some finger painting or some work, and it was drying on the floor, and I could hear rustling, and I looked, and there were mice running across the floor. That didn't make me real happy because I do not like mice. So anyway, we got through that, and the janitors came, and I think they set traps or whatever. We got rid of that. But we had wonderful other teachers. There was Glenn Girdman when I was teaching here. I don't know if Glenn made it. He said he was coming this morning when I saw him, but he was here. Marilyn Duplain, who was no longer living, taught here with me, and Barbara Tank, and there was Barbara Schneider from Sister Bay that taught here with me too for a bit. And the first year I had only 10 students. Well, not even 10. It was I had first and second grade. It was very small. And then they sent a few kids over from Bailey's Harbor because she had such a big classroom. So that was fine. And then the next year, of course, that group moved on. And so the third and fourth grade were very small. And somehow or another, the first and second really grew that year. I don't know what you all did, but there were a lot of kids. And so then we moved rooms, and I moved from the downstairs up to the upstairs room. And finished there. I taught here for 4 years, and then after that, the schools closed. They began closing the schools, and they went to 1 room per teacher. So then I moved to Sister Bay and taught there for 15 years, moved up to Gibraltar and taught there for 10 years, and retired 21 years ago. Figured I had done my duty. But just a few things I jotted down. I don't know how many of you remember. I just think it's so neat to think about these things that we were able to do in these small schools, and they made such a happy classroom and a happy time with the parents, and the parents felt free to come into the classrooms. And I don't think we have that freedom and that openness anymore, and which is too bad. But I know that would send the kids down, a couple of kids, down to the post office about once a week. Do any of you remember that? And you'd buy war bonds and come back, and we'd dole out the war bonds of however many dimes you brought. And I think that was a good experience for a lot of kids, and begin learning how to save. The lunches. Mrs. Miller was, I can't think of her name. I can't think of her name now. She was the cook for a while, but then Mrs. Miller came. Oh, my. The other one was a good cook, but Mrs. Miller really outdid herself every time. She would bake, and she would make sweet rolls so that the teachers had fresh sweet roll at 10 o'clock in the morning at recess time. We all gained weight while we were here. She was wonderful. And I remember this beautiful tree because there was a window with the back of the school, and this gorgeous tree in the fall. Oh, it would be so beautiful, and all these maple trees, and just such a pleasant place for the kids to play and to be out there. I don't know. I really don't have much else that I can tell you except that I enjoyed it. I was here for 4 years and then moved on, but my daughter Melinda attended school here, and our son attended school here. My other daughter, no, she ended up going, I don't know where she went. I think she went to Bailey's Harbor. That was the time that they went to Bailey's Harbor because, they scattered because I didn't want my own kids in my classroom, so I sent them to different places. That was a good thing. So anyway, I enjoyed it. Thank you for inviting me to come. I certainly think this is a wonderful thing, and it was a beautiful little school building that sat up here on the hill, and there were many enjoyable times, I know. Thank you so much.
Don't run away, Eunice. Don't run away.
Okay.
I want you to help me unveil the plaque.
Okay.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to move over to the special plaque that we will unveil, and I will have Eunice give me a little assistance with the removal of the cover. And Eunice, if you'd come along around the back, and if you would be so kind as to just pull off the covering.
Oh, how beautiful. How beautiful.
Who walks west? Who walks east? Site of school district number 1 elementary school in Egg Harbor. So I invite everybody to, before you leave today, stop by, have your picture taken with the plaque here. Also, pictures are being taken if there are any more volunteers. We're recording under the tree some remembrances of your school days here at the Egg Harbor School. I do have to get Steve Jorns up here because Steve has some stories he wishes to share with you folks about the school years here in Egg Harbor. Steve?
Think back, can you hear me? Think back to, well, I started in 1959. Is it on? Okay. A little kid, so big, looking up that big school with all the stone, and to me it looked like a prison. But you open the door and you come through, and if you have to, close your eyes and just think of that time. You walk through the door. To the right was the steps down to the cafeteria. And at my time, there wasn't the third room down there. It's just a cafeteria and the furnace room with the big coal-burning furnace. Okay. Okay. To the left of the door was the athletic room, with the balls and the bats. Then you had that huge stairway going up. And to the right was, the wax coating kind of paneling on the wall, the real dark colored, with all our hooks, and the girls' bathroom. And on the left, the same thing, but the boys' bathroom. And then you had the little bubbler in the middle. And then that room with that smelly that machine that copied all our papers. Mimeograph, thank you.
Then you placed one piece on a time, and you could make about 10 copies, and then you'd have to start all over again. Oh, yeah. I was glad for the mimeograph, but can you imagine when we had electric ones? I was really happy.
That was called a hectograph.
Yeah, hectograph.
Along that dividing wall was the blackboard. And then they had a bulletin board and a little library. And what was on top of that library? Was that a pheasant or a squirrel or something that was mounted up there? I can't quite remember. And then you had the windows to the east and to the south. Of course, there was a door going down to the ball field. And on the left side then was the big room. Of course, the backboard there was against the north wall. And you had the windows then, which were so high, at least to me as this little one, on the west and the south. But you know what that little school did that most schools don't ever do now? Is that besides us being one like family, they taught us how to work. The little ones, like in the last 5 minutes of every day, we would clean the school. The little ones would, clap the erasers, water the plants, even sweep and mop the floors on Friday. The bathrooms, no one messed the bathroom up because you had to clean it. And if anyone didn't want to do their job, no one was left out that door until everyone had their job done. I mean, talk about peer pressure. They would. But that little school, you mentioned going down to the post office. Well, I didn't buy so many bonds. There wasn't quite. I'd go to Trudell's and buy chocolate in big chunks and then sell it to the kids. But what we're looking for here is little stories about, and I'll tell you one little story that happened to me. When I went to school here, if you lived a mile away or more, they would try and get you a ride. You'd hop in with cars, different people, and ride in. My driveway was about 10 feet short of a mile. So we'd try and get here, and in the snow, it was pretty deep. One morning I got to the doors, and the teacher's not here yet, and the doors are locked, and all the kids are sitting around the outside freezing. They're cold. And one of them must have said, I wish I could get in. It's cold out here, and I know how to get in, I told them. Well, then the other one said, well, get in then, open the door. So I ran around to the back of the school, opened the coal chute. Yeah. Well, I get to the door, going to open it, and there's the teacher unlocking the door. She had to be gruff with me because you didn't supposed to break into the school. But every time she'd look at me that day, she'd just giggle. Mrs. Olson just couldn't hold it back because I was just covered in coal dust. But, this was a wonderful little school to go to. I'm sure, You know, in many places, you didn't have more than, well, I had 5 kids in my class. And you get to know everyone really, really well. So, well, I'll hand it over to you now, Jim.
Thanks, Steve. Does anybody have any other remembrances they'd like to get up and bare your soul about? We will be continuing to do some more interviews under the tree. Again, I'd like you all to take a look at this plaque, stand around it, have your picture taken with it. It's a good remembrance. Let me see, Gloria Nelson Anderson is here taking pictures. I believe Patty Williamson from the Peninsula Pulse is here somewhere to do some short little interviews. And if there is anybody else, there was a comment. This is the first dedication plaque that has been placed by the Egg Harbor Historical Society. And plans are about a year down the road, we'll do another one for the Sunny Point School. So stay tuned. So make sure to get your books on the way out. If you're not a member of our Historical Society, we'd love to have you join. We do have extra newsletters here from our most recent mailing. And with that, I would like to conclude today's events and thank each and every one of you for coming. Yeah, come on up, John. Come on up here. Got John Toppe coming up to say a few words.
I went through the first, second, and third grades here right after the war. And I remember when I was a first grader, we all loved our first grade teachers, particularly the boys. And we'd always have to go down. And I can't recall which person I had, either Mrs. Kotursky or Mrs. Newman in my first grade. But I think it was Mrs. Kotursky because she had a ride. Her husband must have driven to Grease Sturgeon Bay to work at a shipyard probably. And we'd meet her down the hill. And we'd all fight to take her hands to have to walk up. Well, that was a big thrill when it was your turn that day. You could walk with Mrs. Kotursky or Mrs. Newman. I don't want to slight anybody. But my classmate, Marietta, is here right now. She's the only one from our class. We wish some more would have come. But we'll hopefully see them here when we get another get-together. This is the greatest thing I've been to in a long time as far as just having a good, refreshing memories to dwell on. Thank you.
Anybody else have any memories they'd like to come up and share? Come on, this is history. We're recording history. We can't say a year from now, boy, I should have done that. So if you do have a little tidbit of information you'd like to share about school and school days with us here at the Egg Harbor reunion today, please come on up. Are there any other takers? I have somebody coming up right now.
For a small school, I was really impressed by the fact that we had art literature. Do you remember they would take those pictures, those old pictures, and put them on the chalkboard? And we would study those artists. Do they do that today? I haven't seen them do that with any of my kids or my grandkids. So I thought that was really impressive. And then we had science over the radio. I'm not sure who it was. Probably too early for Phil Nye, the science guy, but it was over the radio. And then we had music appreciation over the radio. So they made they made opportunities available even though we were small, and I thought that was just incredible. And I loved hot lunch. Who remembers Spanish rice and pizza?
Well, I'm Marion Volkmann, and I went to grade school here long time ago. And who was mentioned that we had chores to do, and we had to clap the erasers. We had to get the flag out in the morning and take it down at night. And a big cloud coming over, it's going to rain. You run out and get the flag down. And then the sun came out again. Well, then you go out and put the flag back up again. And after the third time or so, Mr. Perry said, "That's it. You got to sit down in your class and leave it be. But we used to slide down this hill until somebody almost got hit with a car when they went across the road. So then there was a path going down, I don't know, between the road and then we could slide down there. And then recess, noon hour, then we would go out and play ball. And the big boys were first batter, second batter, third batter. And they could run faster, and they were bigger, and they always got out there first. So come on, you guys, it's not fair. Let somebody else, all right? Go ahead. So you get up and swing the bat. Maybe you hit it, maybe you strike out. You're out in the field again the rest of the game. The same guys were always batting the balls. So, and I remember before they had indoor toilets here, they were way up against the orchard, as far as they could get them away from the school. And I swear, they always put the women's toilet the farthest away, farther away than the men's. But we had to go out there to use the toilet. But it was a great school to go to, and I went here all 8th grade. So, and I was a classmate of Pete LeMere, so that's it.
I'm Jane Berschinger, and I went here all 8 grades, and I became an educator. And believe me, I used a lot of stories from this school in my work with children. And some of the things you might remember are building the forts and the little bushes in the woods, or going up to the big maple and having secret meetings. And the merry-go-round, boys push, and then you'd have girls push. When I think of this school, I got in a lot of trouble, and it was because I was bored. Remember our small little libraries? Well, once you go through those books about 3 times, that's enough. So I would purposely get into trouble so I could get out of the room. I was one of them that flooded the toilets so I could get out. But when they talked about the bookmobile, that bookmobile was a saving grace for me. It brought the world and it opened it up. So I was real glad to see the bookmobile coming.
I just wanted to make one more comment. And I don't know how many of you know, but in 2018, Gibraltar School will be 100 years old. And so we are now getting things together, and hopefully we can have a fun reunion with Gibraltar in 2018. But keep it in mind because it'll be coming. But you know, when she mentioned pledging allegiance to the flag, how important that was. And do you know that now the kids cannot do that? You don't pledge allegiance to the flag in the morning like we used to do. Every morning it was pledge allegiance and sing America, but that's gone. And I think that's too bad because that's part of the reason I think we have so much trouble in the world, because the kids just, I think in the small schools, they learned compassion for each other, and they learned kindness, and it was a better world. At least I think it was.
And I am fortunate to be joined by Bonnie Perry and Joanne Perry. Their father taught school here for many, many years. And first of all, I'd like to thank you for coming back for this reunion. And I'd like each of you to just kind of share with us some remembrances you have of the school and growing up here and the activities in the younger days. Bonnie, if you'd like to go first.
Sure. What I remember most is having a 2-room classroom. And I always, as I grew older, I always wondered how 2 teachers could take care of all the 4 grades at one time. It's pretty remarkable to look back upon. I remember the first name of the first grade teacher was Marion. I can't remember the last name at the moment, though. But my father taught me for the last 4 years at Egg Harbor. And that had some good times and some difficult times having a father for a teacher.
Oh, I get it.
it's wonderful to be here again, and thank you all for pulling this all together.
Joanne, any remembrances you have of the school days here at the Egg Harbor School?
I was Lloyd Perry's first daughter that he had in school here. And I remember coming, we had moved from Judgeville, and I remember coming from a one-room school to a two-room school. But the toughest part of all of it for me was because I was his daughter. And he expected, I was the first one in the family to go to him, and he expected an awful lot from me. And a lot of times, if I didn't do well, I didn't only hear about it in the schoolroom, I heard about it at home too. But I have so much respect for my father, and I have that respect carried on from the schoolroom throughout my life, because as hard as it was at times, he's part of why I am where I am and who I am today.
Well, again, we'd like to thank you for coming back, but in the one-room, two-room school, the one teacher taught everything from reading to math to geometry to world history. Did I miss anything?
No, I think you've covered it all very well.
I'd like to say one more thing about my father and my mother. They didn't only take care of the schoolroom. I mean, they did everything. They heated the school. We had to shovel coal. Sometimes, like Bonnie and I would have to help with that. And I also want to say how active he was in the community all of my growing up years.
Yes.
He was in Boy Scouts. He took the boys traveling all over to play sports. He was just a really remarkable man.
Any little gem that you'd just like to share before we close here of any thoughts that you may have had, or something that stands out as a unique event that happened?
One of the unique events that was also in the school, Joanne touched on my father and all the things he did, but my mother used to come and clean the schools. And that meant recruiting her daughters to come and help. So I knew that when we cleaned the school year would be starting very, very shortly. So
Okay, Bonnie, where is home for you now?
Des Plaines,
Illinois. And Joanne, your hometown?
Is Tallahassee, Florida.
Tallahassee, Florida. Well, you certainly came a long distance to be with us today, and we thank you for sitting down and sharing some time and some of your remembrances of growing up and going to school at the Egg Harbor School. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. Thank you for putting this all together. Thank you.
It's the 26th of June, 2016, and I'm joined with two other school graduates. And from the end, we got Peter LeMere and Roland Jorns. Peter, what years did you attend school here at Egg Harbor?
1939 to 1947.
And Rolly, you got in that ballpark?
1934.
1934. The question that I'd like to ask is a two-room school. What do you recall, Rolly, about going to school, the teachers, and life in general at that time?
Well, I enjoyed school. I had just about a mile walk, but I recall one incident when I was in Mr. Perry's room that was quite outstanding. When I look back at it, it was a very, very cold day in the wintertime, and I came across the orchard to come to school. And when I got here, Mr. Perry was just walking up. It was so cold, his car hadn't started. And he had a black cap on that folded down, but he did not have it pulled all the way down, and he froze his ears. And for about a week, his ears would hang down. And everybody was sort of kidding him, but it was very serious.
Okay.
And after that, when things wouldn't be going right in days afterwards, Mr. Perry would say, he'd come up with, "I can only depend on two people." And that's himself and me.
Great story. Peter, your remembrances of the Egg Harbor School and things that happened.
Okay, well, my grade school teachers for the first 2 grades were a lady named Rosella Bry from the Forestville area. Grades 3 and 4, Donna Madden from, I believe, Sturgeon Bay. And I shared Mr. Perry with Roley for the last 4 years here. Some of my memories were the early years. We had chemical toilets. For a first or second grader, it seemed like the pit was 100 feet below you. I remember kind of being scared to go to the toilet. Finally graduated to get into the big room. I was here during World War II years. We were a collection site for tin cans and scrap. And as you advanced in the upper grades, you got to help the county truck guys load when they came to collect. We also went out and collected milkweed pods, which I believe were used for life preservers. We lined up at noon. Mr. Perry was quite insistent that everybody line up and wash their hands before they went and opened their lunch pail. We also lined up for goiter pills, which many of you will remember. Where some hated them, some loved them, and there were a couple guys that I knew that would get yours if you didn't want to take it. And then I guess the last fond memory I have of my days at school was the annual Christmas program. Every student from grade 1 through grade 8 would get a part, rehearse it for several days or weeks ahead of time. They'd set up a stage on sawbucks and planks and have the program in what was called the big room, the room that faced this direction, and it performed to a packed house every year. There were people standing elbow to elbow, sitting on the windowsills, and so it was a good time and a great place to grow up. And couldn't find a better one.
And everybody got a bag of Christmas candy, right?
That's right. I think you're right. Yeah.
What about, I know you're both sports enthusiasts, play softball, baseball on the playground. Remember the merry-go-round, the big oak tree that we're sitting under?
Yeah, flagpole right out there.
Uh-huh.
You had the chores. You were assigned flagpole, clapping erasers. I don't know what grade. Maybe you remember, Rolly, you got the safety patrol. And I almost forgot one of my favorite stories. This gentleman talked about coming through the orchard. Some mornings he would be playing his trumpet as he came through the orchard. And we knew when Roley was coming across where the ball diamond is now, it was just field in, but you knew it was Roley when you heard the trumpet sounds coming out of the orchard.
Was there softball games with other schools, Sunny Point or Carlsville, any other schools in the area that you played inter-school?
There definitely was. We played Juddville. We beat them every time. I think I used to do some of the pitching there, but I felt I was one of the best hitters around. I really, and that big maple tree in the back here, that was my target. Every time Mr. Perry would pitch to the group in what was that called when he pitched to us? Phi-Ed, not Phi-Ed.
Maybe physical education or something.
Physical education, yeah. He would try and strike me out. And I'd point to that tree, and I'd let her wheel, and he never did strike me out. I got to say that I totally enjoyed grade school. Peter was on the honor roll, I was on the honor roll. My whole class, all three of us, we had 3 of us in our class, and every single one was on the honor roll. Jack Trudell was first, Fred Bittorf was second, and I was something like 9th.
How are you?
But I beat them all in math.
Well, in closing, we'd again like to thank both of you for being here today as a part of this reunion, and thank you for sitting down with us and recording some of your fond memories of the Egg Harbor School. Today we're talking with Mary Bogenschutz, and just wanted to ask her questions of what do you recall about school days at the old Egg Harbor School?
Well, Jim, I came here in late '71. I was a transfer from De Pere, Wisconsin, and so I came here again in April of '71, and I was only here till June. But I have to let you know that coming to the Egg Harbor School was one of the most special things that I remember, because it was such an important transition in my life from one area to the other, and meeting all these students that were very welcoming.
Was it sort of a transition from a De Pere school, many rooms, hallways, to a two-room school?
Yes, from nuns to Mrs. Rose Olson, who was precious, and she was just so warm and welcoming, and that's something that I needed.
Wonderful. Have you been able to keep in contact with some of your former classmates, and have you seen any of them here today?
I have. Bonnie Kino is here, and she was my very first best friend. We moved in with my dad and stepmother, and there were 6 of us, and then just down the road, an eighth of a mile, was the Alan Kino family, and they had 6 kids, and Bonnie just happened to be in my grade.
Wonderful.
So we're best friends yet to this day.
Well, thank you for taking a couple of moments to sit down and chat and recall your remembrances of school here at Egg Harbor. Thank you so very much.
Thank you, Jim.
Once again, we are at the site of the former Egg Harbor School in Egg Harbor, Wisconsin. It's Reunion Day, the 26th of June, 2016, and we're talking at this time with 2 former students and asking them about their recollections. I have Darrell Haen and Wallace Bittorf. Now let me ask you, Darrell, what years did you go to school here at the Egg Harbor School?
Well, from about 45 to 53.
All right.
1945 to 1953.
What do you remember about the two-room school?
Well, we didn't have that many students. I can remember we had about 30 students in each room, and we only had 2 teachers. We had, at the time when I was in the smaller grades, we had about 4 different teachers. We started out with Mrs. Percy Newman, and then we went to, I don't know, I can't remember in what order, but there was a Mrs. Uleman, Mrs. Katursky, and Mrs. Fricks. And then in the big room, Mr. Perry was our principal and our teacher for the 4 years I was here in the big room.
And Wally Bittorf, your thoughts on the Egg Harbor School and going to school here?
Well, it was very nice for me. I lived only a hop, skip, and jump away. And so whenever there was school, Mr. Perry had school no matter what the weather was. Anybody who could walk was still inspected at school. So we always did that. We always had just a few, and the children that had to ride in from a farther distance, they didn't make it to all of those days, but we still had a great time. I can remember more of playing outside rather than any work in school.
Being an old school, I'm sure there was a coal-fired furnace of some sort in the basement. Did either of you gentlemen get the opportunity to stoke up the furnace in the morning?
No, but we had to haul the clinkers out.
Yeah, Mr. Perry always come in pretty early and had that furnace going. I remember the school was usually pretty warm by the time we got here.
It was, yeah.
So
it was never.
We had a thermometer hanging right in the middle of the room, and that thing stuck pretty close to 76 degrees, and so that was a good thing.
Wonderful, wonderful. Softball games out behind the school. What do you remember about that?
Well, the bigger kids always won, and we'd have toss a bat to 2 of the older kids, and they'd go up the bat and see who chooses first. And of course, the guy that got the first choice usually had the best team, but not always. We had a lot of fun. I mean, it was all we all got along so good in those days, right, Wally? And
yeah, it was
really
a good camaraderie with our group anyway.
Yeah, it sure was.
Wonderful. I'm sure you've had the opportunity to speak with and get reacquainted with a lot of the schoolmates today.
Yes,
and
yes, I have.
Couldn't recognize them.
Yeah. Well,
That's why we so much appreciate you taking a few moments of your time to sit down with us and record a little of this for history on the activities and the events that went on at the Egg Harbor School.
Yeah, if I can add one thing, I remember, Wally, there was a big merry-go-round here.
Yes,
And,
just a little away from this one.
Yeah, a big tall one. And it was hanging by rails from the circular apparatus on the top. And one of the poles on that thing had a bunch of dents in.
Yes.
So when us little kids run out to play on that thing, everybody wanted Denty. We were racing for that pole. And we'd get that swing rocking back and forth. That thing would rise up a couple feet off the ground, I think, where we'd be going jerkety-jerk, we called it. And it was fun. I mean, I got so many stories I could keep you busy here all day, but you probably got other things to do. So.
Any other remembrances, Wally?
Well, we played other schools at softball in the spring, and we weren't too successful then either, but we made our presence known.
Yeah, Sunny Point used to beat us.
Yeah.
They had some pretty good hitters up there. Orthobers and Lautenbachs and stuff, but with most of the schools, we kind of beat most of them. And in basketball, if you remember, Wally, when I was in 7th grade, Leland was in the 8th grade, and Tommy Putz and I were in the 7th grade, and you were in the 5th, you and John Berschinger, and we had a pretty good basketball team. We'd have won the championship in this area, except we lost by 1 point to Wildwood in the championship game, but we beat everybody else we played. We had a good team.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful memories.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing. Hi, Jim Peterson again from the Egg Harbor Historical Society with Judy Haen Dexheimer. Judy is a member of the Board of Directors of the Historical Society, and Judy, in conjunction with Steve Jorns, were very instrumental in putting together the reunion today. Judy, tell me, how did this get started?
I honestly just remember that at a meeting somebody said we should have a reunion, and wondering how we could find these kids and so forth. And I volunteered, and Steve said he would find them too. We had forgotten that everybody has cell phones now, and so we really did have a hard time finding people. Plus, I thought it would be easy to find some Department of Education that would give us all the names of all the students from all the years. That has vanished. When the school went down, there was nothing left. When the superintendent's office went, there wasn't. So we really, really had to work hard at getting the students' names and find a lot of people.
And a good job you did. We had more than 150 registered people here from California, Arizona, Florida that came back for the reunion. What a testament to the fine work you did. And Judy, do you recollect some of your days in the school here at Egg Harbor?
The merry-go-round, there we go, playing jacks. I played tackle football with the boys. I was the only girl in my class after 6th grade. So it was, and there weren't a lot of us in a class. I remember Mr. Perry. I will say he was probably one of the best teachers ever. He wanted everyone to learn. And if you didn't learn, it was not because he didn't try. He just absolutely, if you didn't get something, he would make them come back for recess and correct all their answers if they didn't get things correct. He was very strict, and you didn't want to get on the wrong side of him. But he was a very, very good teacher.
And I'm sure a lot of those friendships that you made in those years have lasted a lifetime.
Well, I do see a lot of these people, yes. Mm-hmm. And because we have a younger, we didn't have a lot of people in the class, and a lot of my classmates did stay around here.
Wonderful. What about the Christmas pageants that were
always, every year? we had a Christmas program for every child that was in there. My first year, I had chicken pox and missed that one. Missed my first day of school, too. But yes, every year, the Christmas pageant, and everybody had a chance to sing, dance. They did plays. It was something everybody looked forward to. And the picnics at the end of the year were fabulous. And it always ended up with
there's corn in that
ice cream.
Special events on Halloween and New Year's, and the boys, I'm sure, helped Mr. Perry stoke the furnace, and always warm in the school, right?
It always was warm, yes. And I love to get on clappy racers. I love some of those little duties that just to keep going and whatnot. And I walked to school, and then I walked home for lunch and walked back. So we had a trail that went through that came out by Mina's old tavern.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So you actually were in Egg Harbor when it was quite small.
Absolutely.
Wink and you'd be through it.
Yes, absolutely.
Do you recall anything, were there a lot of motels in those days, or were they minimal? Lullaby?
I think the Lullaby was probably one of the first ones that I remember. And then later, the one that's up here now.
The Cape Cod?
Yes.
All right.
Yeah, that's the only ones that I do remember.
Any other remembrances of Egg Harbor Village or the school as you were growing up not too long ago?
I do remember the grocery stores. There were 5 taverns, 3 grocery stores, a post office, and 3 gas stations. And
okay, so there was a barber shop. So what did you ladies do to have your hair done?
oh, there was Eldon's Beauty Salon, which was actually right next door to my house.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. That's right. That's right. Oh my gosh. Well, this history is fun, and thank you for sitting down and sharing some of those moments of your life and times growing up. And you got to meet a lot of people because your dad, Harvey Haen, had the mobile gas station. So that's another thing you didn't tell me that you did, was pumped a lot of gas.
Oh yes, I did. From age 10. Yes.
The best looking attendants in the village.
We all had to do that. My sister, everybody, all 5 of us, and then our children even came up and worked when he still had the place. So,
wonderful.
Yeah.
Judy, thanks for your time and sitting down and remembering.
You're welcome, and I just want you to know that Shar did an awful lot of work on me also.
Christmas thing. I always remember I was always taller and bigger than most of the kids, so I always got to be the teacher or the mom or the grandma, and I was always Mrs. White. We would play house, and we'd push the leaves together. We would make our own little floor plans, and then we would make dinner, and we would take the milkweed, and we'd have fish. We'd peel the outsides, and we'd have green beans. We'd fluff it up, and we'd have mashed potatoes.
Of course, and playing in this area.
That great big merry-go-round.
Yeah.
I've heard a lot of stories. That thing,
most dangerous thing in the world, but so much fun.
Was there a seesaw or teeter-totter here at the...
Yeah, there was a teeter-totter.
There was
over on that
somewhere
side.
in here too. There must have been there was a slide.
Yeah.
And yeah.
All the things that are now deemed hazardous to your health.
Right.